Shifa International Hospital is the for-profit entity, and it has two shoulder arms, one in education, that is Tameer-e-Millat Foundation, and one in health, which is Shifa Foundation. It was just very much inspired by the healthcare system that he saw in the US and really wanted to bring that back to Pakistan. Pakistan is in dire need of education. He wanted to educate the masses so that we can, come out of poverty and come out and become and stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the developed countries in the world. Under my organization, Tameer-e-Millat Foundation, when we start a school, we will support it for 3 years, but then we encourage the school to find ways to generate funds so that it can at least meet its day-to-day operations. If there's any family who cannot afford the education, we don't turn them back. We want to give education that is just as high as those that are being offered in the private institutions, but we want to do it at an affordable rate that's comparable to the government institutions.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by Pro Pakistani. We are very fortunate today. We have special guest Samea Ahmad. She's the chairperson of Tameer-e-Millat Foundation, which is in association with Shifa International Hospital.
Correct.
Firstly, thank you for being on the podcast.
No, it's a pleasure. Assalamu alaikum to everyone listening.
So let's start with your dad's story. You were just telling me off air, and I thought that was so interesting. Let's just start from there. So you told me he was born in 1948, right? So
yes,
right after Pakistan.
Yes, my father was born in January of 1948, and I believe that that's where his journey actually began, because he was the firstborn, children of free Pakistan.
Bilkul.
And when you see what might have inspired him, he being the youngest in the family must have heard so many stories from his own siblings, his relatives, about all the sacrifices they gave to come to Pakistan for this nation. And I think it must have inspired something in him from a very early age. And he had one vision, and one goal was he wants to do something for this country.
And when did he sort of open Shifa International Hospital? What was the journey to that? When did he decide he wanted to do that?
So my father grew up in his early childhood in Kyora because his grandfather was posted there in the salt mines. And he did his matriculation from Kyora. And then he went to Rawalpindi and completed his FSc from Gordon College. There he met his friend, Dr. Manzoor Qazi, who is the current CEO of Shifa International Hospital. They both tried to get into medical college.
Your dad was a doctor?
Yes. My father was not a doctor yet at this point.
Okay.
He wanted to be a doctor, but he didn't have enough marks to get into medical college. His friend, Dr. Ghazi, who's now Dr. Ghazi, did. Mm-hmm. He got into King Edward Medical College.
Okay.
My father did the next best thing after medicine, which is pharmacy. So he became a pharmacist from Punjab University. And he was okay with that. He became a lecturer after he graduated, and then an opportunity arose where he can migrate to the U.S. And he requested my grandfather, who actually declined, and it was his elder brother, my Taya, who actually convinced everyone to let my father go to the U.S. And so my father went to the U.S. in the very early 70s. And he started practicing as a pharmacist. He was successful. He had several pharmacies. He was able to sponsor my mother and my elder brother at that time to come to the U.S. as well. And they went and migrated as well, and they were settled. And my father was just very much inspired by the healthcare system that he saw in the U.S. and really wanted to bring that back to Pakistan. But he had a problem. He was like, I'm not a doctor. And if I want to build a hospital, if anyone wants to take me seriously, I need to be a doctor. And so he, after, 4 children, even though he was settled in his business, he decided to enroll in med school. and he enrolled in med school. And when my younger brother was just born, and he would go and come back after a semester. And my younger brother wouldn't even recognize him because he would be like, who is this man? He would forget who he is. But that just shows how dedicated he was to doing this, fulfilling this dream. But there was two things, because he said Pakistan is in dire need of education. He wanted to educate the masses so that we can, come out of poverty and come out and become and stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the developed countries in the world. And it was somewhat patriotic, but I would say that his mission was even broader than that. He wanted to uplift the Muslim Ummah as a whole as well. And so he, while he was studying to become a doctor, he started funding a school in Kyora, where he grew up in, and he wanted to give back to that city first and foremost. And it hadn't occurred to him to make a foundation at that point. He was just making.
And this was a school that he was funding himself, or was this a school that took fees or anything like that?
No, he was funding it himself through, and he had other supporters who helped him, construct this building and start the school. And yes, his vision was that there should be some token fee that the parents give,
right,
because that's the only way they'll own it. Otherwise, they'll abuse and misuse the system. And so, because his philosophy was that for anything to be sustainable, it needs to stand on its own legs as well. And even now, when we start a school, under my organization, Tameer-e-Millat Foundation, when we start a school, we will support it for 3 years, but then we encourage the school to find ways to generate funds so that it can at least meet its day-to-day operations.
How does it find ways to raise funds?
A lot of our schools that we have, they have a piece of land next to them that's probably sitting idle. We tell them to, use it for some agriculture purpose and then sell the produce, or construct some rooms, rent it out.
But they won't charge the students anything?
No, they do charge the students.
Okay.
It's a token fee, something that is affordable within that community, from 100 rupees to 200, not more than 1,000 rupees.
And why is that important? Is it just to make sure that the kids are serious about the education?
Yes, we have seen that it's very important that the parents also put in something in their children's education. They become more serious towards their children's education as well. They want to see progress in their child because they're pulling something out of their pocket as well. But at the same time, we have a No Child Left Behind policy, where if there's any family who cannot afford the education, we don't turn them back.
Okay.
And we also favor the orphans. So we ensure that it's affordable across the field. So if you have to reduce the fee 50% or 100%, there's many options out there.
Okay. I have some follow-up questions regarding that, but let's first go back to your father's story. He wanted to set a non-profit hospital as well, right? That was the initial goal.
Yes, the initial goal was to provide affordable, quality healthcare as well. But after studying different models, him and his colleagues who joined with him to do this project, they decided that the most sustainable project would be a for-profit entity.
Okay.
And so they decided to make it a for-profit entity, and they have it registered in the stock exchange. It's a publicly listed company. So when he came to Pakistan to start this hospital, there was a concern, what about the poor patients then? Because obviously the type of hospital that they had envisioned, it would be difficult for poor patients to afford.
Right.
And so from that point on, they created a foundation in the health sector, which is very much strong and active now, which is under the name Shifa Foundation.
Right.
So if you really think about it, Shifa International Hospital is the for-profit entity, and it has two shoulder arms, one in education, that is Tameer-e-Millat Foundation, and one in health, which is Shifa Foundation.
Right.
And then the story gets even more interesting. Then all three of these organizations joined hand to fund the Shifa Tameer-e-Millat University. And so there's 4 organizations, and we call ourselves a Shifa family now.
No, that's really nice. And when did you join the Shifa family?
Tragically, unfortunately, I was obviously born and raised in the U.S. and happily settled there. And then one fine day, my parents tell us we're moving to Pakistan, and it's really hard for a 13-year-old to accept that you're going to leave all your friends and go to Pakistan, and you don't know what to expect, and you have a different picture in your mind. But we came, and it was really hard. I didn't accept Pakistan as my home for almost 5 years.
Wait, how old were you when you moved?
13.
13. Okay.
And this is back
Went
in
to school here?
1997. Yes.
Islamabad.
Islamabad. I went to Frobels at first.
Oh, okay.
And then I went to OPF Girls College for my A-levels. And so it was really hard like I said, it took me almost 5 years to actually accept the fact that I'm in Pakistan. Like in my mind, I was like, we're just going to leave any day now. We're going to go back. And there was no real connection to Pakistan. I think that came because even when we moved to Pakistan, we were in a sheltered environment, and all my friends were English speaking, and they had also moved from abroad, and we didn't know the real Pakistan. And then I got admitted into AU Medical College. And I lived in the hostel there, and I met a part of this country that I hadn't had any connection with before, because my parents, my father was from Faisalabad and my mother was from Multan, so I didn't know this KP region. Back then it was NWFP, but I had no idea. And so by going there, I not only got to see that part of Pakistan and meet Pathans and Hazare Wale and
all sorts
of Pakistans, and I understood the rich diversity of this nation, but I also recognized how much this country needs people like us, professionals, doctors. It was just mind-blowing when we would work in the district hospital, the type of cases that we would see, and it was just it really woke something up in me at that time, that this country needs so much.
What sort of cases would you see?
People just in advanced cases of their disease when, they could have been prevented from early on. Women in childbirth coming, bleeding out, and just desperate, there's no ambulances. They would come in cars and charpais, and it was just really things that, it's just heartbreaking at times.
This is how long ago?
This is in the 90s, early 90s.
Do you think it's improved in the last 30 odd years?
I think it has improved. There's a lot more awareness through the social media about, medical care and television and everything. But I think what is the problem is that when the people go to see a doctor, either if the doctor is not competent enough, either they'll miss it, or if they do diagnose, the family just can't afford it, and they make a decision. Do I sell everything for me, or do I just die and leave it to my children? I think a lot of people are faced with these type of dilemmas, how to actually go about treatment. So that's something that is there.
And you moved back to the U.S. after you finished med school? After
I did med school and I got married, I went back to the U.S. and I was, all geared up to enter the careers and, become something and come back. But, life is very, I would say, unpredictable. When you get married, you really don't know which way anything is going to go. So my husband was doing his residency in surgery, which is a really, really tough surgery residency. And it was just he was gone all the time, and we had started our family, and I decided that I'll stay home in the formidable years of my children, and I'll continue once they start going to school. So that's how it was going, and that's how I was clearing my USMLE exams, and I had cleared them actually, and I was about to apply for residency programs when I got a phone call saying that my father suffered a brain hemorrhage, and so I knew, being a doctor, I knew how serious that was, and especially when they told me that, what area of the brain the bleed was, I knew that it was not a good situation. So I came to Pakistan, and unfortunately my father was in a coma for 9 days, and then he passed away. didn't give us any instructions. He just went to work one day and had the, just that was it. And we were left with having to figure out what and how to take all of these organizations forward. And that was when I decided that my father passed away at the age of 63. And I was in my mid-30s by then. And I decided that, maybe I'll have about 20, 25 years. And what do I want to do with this life that I have? If I have the same timeline as my father, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back to America? Or should I come back to Pakistan and do what I can? And then the other question was, where would my impact be greater? And I decided my impact would be greater if I come back to Pakistan. And that was the deciding question, for me at least. And then there were other personal reasons as well. But that was which gave me the most peace, was that I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to see if I can, take this organization forward.
What about your kids and your husband and everyone else?
I had mentioned that I came when I was 13 to Pakistan, and coincidentally, my son was also 13. So I told him, if I can do it, you can do it. My other children were younger, and I knew it would be easier for them because it's easier when you're younger. And so alhamdulillah, they came, and they have a lot more opportunities to connect back home than I did with the internet and everything. Like when I came back, we had to write letters by hand and mail them out and wait 3 months for a reply to come back. Once one of my mails came after like a year, and I realized the mail had gone to Paraguay first, and then it came to Pakistan. But so that's how I came back to Pakistan. My husband was supportive because his mother was also a widow, and he, being the eldest of his family, also wanted to come back. And he had finished his transplant surgery residency in America, and that's a field that's very much needed in Pakistan, and we decided to come back then.
And now you've been back here for
almost 11 years now.
11 years.
Yeah.
And how would you gauge the sort of impact that you've had in the last 10, 11 years?
It's totally transformed me. I think I would have been a totally different person if I had stayed back in America. I would have been probably more career-oriented. And I'm not saying it's wrong to be career-oriented, but at times it's almost like, to me, I think it's a little bit selfish in the sense that you're just thinking about yourself and where you want to be in a certain level, and you want to have a house and you want to have that recognition. This is more of you're working at the grassroots level, and it's not a very glamorous and glorious position. It's working with the people of Pakistan, doing day-to-day firefighting. We're running, alhamdulillah, 53 schools across all of Pakistan, except for Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. And we have 2 technical institutes that we're running, and two of our schools have reached the college level, so we're running at the college level as well. So it's a huge network, and there's multiple problems every day that I have to go through. But at the same time, I think that I'm fulfilling what my father had started, and I'm using whatever knowledge I gained. I'm not saying I wasted my knowledge in medical what I pursued my MBBS. I think it really complements and makes me understand the complexities about how to move forward.
How many kids do you guys have total in all the schools?
We have 16,000 plus students currently studying in our school.
Okay. And of those 16,000, this is currently, right? So
yes.
In totality, do you have any idea in the 30 plus years how many students?
40,000 plus.
40,000 plus.
At least, because about 1,000 students graduate a year from our program.
Do you have any sort of idea of any student who has graduated through the system who's had that's had a positive impact on him or on society?
Yes. There are many cases that I know of. I wish I knew all of them, but I don't. It's just the ones who come back and reach back out to us.
Of course.
We have a really talented student. She studied from our school in Miachanu.
Mm-hmm.
She's now teaching at NUST University.
Wow.
She's become a donor of ours. She donates to the organization now to, pay it forward.
Yeah.
We have a student of ours who's currently studying at Shifa College of Nursing.
Mm-hmm.
He too wanted to get into medicine, but he couldn't compete in the merit to get into med school. And we counseled him and we supported him and said that if you want to join the medical, nursing is just as good as an option. It's an underrated field, and there's opportunities not only in Pakistan but in the entire world. Nursing is in demand, so we were able to convince him. He's pursuing nursing, but we have technicians that graduated from our network who are serving their communities. The ultimate goal is for that child to go back to his own community and serve. That would be the best case scenario, because the whole idea is that the reason why we built our schools in the rural areas is so that the rural community gets empowered. My father would say that if you educate a child in the city, you're educating him or her. But if you educate a child in the village, you're educating the entire village, because that's the impact that child.
Of course, because they give it back as well.
Yeah.
How much does it cost per student to sort of per year for 1 year's fees?
It really depends. Like I said, that our schools, we don't have a uniform system in our schools. Okay. We study the area and the affordability of the community, and we will place a tuition on that. But it's for just the tuition. I mean, this doesn't include books and doesn't include transport that the child may need to come and go. So it's under $1,000 for just that. But if you want to, sponsor the whole package, it'd be a little bit more, so that, he has.
What's like the minimum, say I want to donate tomorrow, Ramzan aa rahi hai, zakat dena hai, whatever it is.
1,000 rupees a month.
Okay. Is the bare minimum.
Yes.
And
which we can help educate a child.
Okay.
In today's economy.
And how many, is it like large sets of donors, or do you have a lot of small donors as well? What's the donor mix?
It's both, actually. We have big donors who sponsor entire school, to people like you who will sponsor just one child, and it's not uniform.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And where do you sort of see it going now, right? So you've been a part of this for 10 or 11 years, and I'm sure it's scaled to some extent.
Yes.
And as it continues to scale, what's the vision for the next 10, 15 years? What do you guys want to achieve?
Well, the vision is for every school that we have under our network to progress to the college level, so that at least the child is now ready to go to college. And even then, we want to ensure that the child gets into college, or so again, this is how my father would say it to me. If a child comes under the Tameer-e-Millat Foundation network, he has two routes. If he excels academically, we're going to take him all the way up to university. Okay. And that's why they established the Shifa Tameer-e-Millat University. And if a child does not excel academically, then we're going to impart certain skills to that child so that he can, become a productive citizen of Pakistan regardless. And so the whole idea was to ensure that the next generation of this nation is empowered.
How many boys are there and how many girls are there? What's the sort of percentage?
We have a sort of 50-50 mix, just slightly higher female side, maybe 51% females. But that's more or less even Steven, up to a certain level. Why I say that is because as the grade level gets higher, the dropout for girls gets higher as well, unfortunately. Cultural issues hote hain, religious issues bhi hote hain, just lack of awareness, and gender disparity. The fact कि लड़की ने 8वीं तक पढ़ लिया है, now either उसकी शादी हो जाएगी या उसने कुछ और करे घर बैठ के. So it's very hard to change the mindset of a community. And alhamdulillah, I'm very, very happy that times are changing. Back when I first came in 2012, I had to go door to door to convince the parents. There was a girl who got married, and I had to convince her husband to send her back to school. But now, if I had like 3 or 4 students in FSC or metric level, now I'm having, double digits now. So the times are changing. I mean, it's going to take time. You can't expect it to change overnight. But having said that, we try to facilitate the education of girls as much as possible. We sponsor them. We provide transport to them. We provide scholarships, counseling, whatever we can to ensure that, at least in this day and age, she should at least complete 12 years of education.
And after 12 years of education, have there been girls who have gone on to work, or is that still
Yes.
something? Okay.
I quote an example where one of them is now teaching in Nust University.
Yeah, of course.
So yes, there are. I think that regardless, this is a very common saying, and I do believe it, that if you educate a boy, you educate the boy. And if you educate a girl, you're going to educate her entire family in the future, because she will use that knowledge to teach on to
children
as well. So the knowledge is not wasted. Every mother wishes that there were more educated. I think my mother was metric only, and up to grade school, she would help us with our studies. And after that, my father took over. But, if she was given the opportunity, I'm sure she would have done a lot more as well.
And why do you think that education is the answer, right? So why is it? I mean, of course, in Pakistan, we always talk about education being the biggest problem, and that will lead to prosperity and it'll lead to lots of other things. But why?
I don't think there should be any dispute. I mean, as Muslims, we are taught to gain knowledge. Knowledge is what I think will bring anyone who seeks knowledge will start to gain direction. Knowledge will lead to peace as well. Because he will have something to, or he or she will have something to give back to the next generation. It gives a person purpose, self-respect. I think it just is something that, for me, I can't even think about not providing education to anyone. But it doesn't have to be formal education, like I said. I do believe that there are other forms of education. We just fail to recognize it. ये पुराने ज़माने में जो apprentices होते थे, ये जो अभी भी workshops में एक उन्होंने रखा होता है छोटा. I mean, they're learning a skill. That's a knowledge in itself.
Of course. And that's something that can put bread on the table as well.
The education doesn't just mean pen and paper education. So what I mean by education is knowledge in anything. Ultimately that knowledge leads you to knowing who you are, gives you meaning in life. I think it brings you closer to your creator.
And talk me through the curriculum. Is it similar to Pakistani government schools? Is it exactly the same?
It's exactly the same, but in our up to 5th grade, we try to have a mix of both Oxford books and other publishers as well. Because we don't think that the government books are good. Under the single national curriculum, a lot of work has been done, and I must appreciate them. They really did bring a huge difference to the education system. But what I mean is that there's no choice for us right now other than to give government education, because we're dealing with a population that if they want to seek higher education, their most chances to get affordable education is through the government universities. And so you have to give them that platform so that they can compete with that level. The other system of education in Pakistan under the private, the Cambridge system, it's number one, way too expensive for our communities where we're dealing with, for them to afford. So that is maybe planned, further in the future, but currently we're only going for the government sector.
That makes sense.
All the boards. So if a school is in Punjab, they'll follow the Punjab board. If a school is in Sindh board, so whatever province they're in, they'll follow that board.
That makes sense. And generally speaking, since you guys have such a wide network, how do you pick location? So on what basis is that particular area? शुरू तो आपने obviously जहाँ आपके वालिद साहब पढ़े थे वहाँ से किया, but then eventually you moved, I'm sure, into what you guys thought were good locations to open schools. So what is the sort of metric to decide कि यार यहाँ पे education की ज़रूरत है?
So initially, my father, because he was in this position where he would, have the opportunity to meet a lot of people who were from, across Pakistan, and they had one dilemma, was that their children don't want to go back to the village and live. And so they would have land there, and then they would be inspired by the fact that my father is building schools, and they would donate land to my father. But having said that, we have a system where we do a feasibility of that area to see how many existing schools are in that area.
Okay.
How far are the schools from each other? Is there need in that area? And from there we decide, and then how much can the community afford if we build the school. So when my father first started building the schools, this is back in the late 80s.
Okay.
Other than the government schools, there weren't a lot of schools. The mushrooming of these private schools, gali gali mein jo schools aapko nazar aa rahe hain, that happened in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and so it's changed the whole platform for me. So the government schools are funded by the government, and so they have subsidized education, and the private schools are charging an arm and a leg, and they're making money off of people. So we are the non-for-profits, and we're in the gray area in between both of them. And it's very difficult to, sort of, ensure that what we're trying to do is different. We want to give education that is just as high as those that are being offered in the private institutions, but we want to do it at an affordable rate that's comparable to the government institutions. So you can see how difficult it is to manage that.
It's in between, so it's a little tough. Actually, I won't take much more of your time. Just a last question. If I wanted to donate, what is the easiest way to do so? What are the different, I'm sure you could do it online.
Yes.
Where else can I go? How easy is it to donate? Just tell us a little bit about that.
So if you go to our webpage, you'll see there's a phone number you can contact.
Okay.
If you're in the Twin Cities, at least, we can come to your doorsteps and pick it up. We can also, we have the Easy Pesa way of donating as well. We've got a bank account. You can donate online. We're currently setting up the credit card system as well, inshallah, soon. So you can pay through that as well. So those are different ways that you can donate.
All right, perfect. So if you guys are looking to give zakat this month or donate in general, we'll definitely share the links in the podcast with you guys. Thank you for being on the podcast.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you for the next podcast.